Hey everyone, Movie Butt 29 coming at you with another video. This time I am going to talk about Scream, the fifth movie that just came out yesterday. I had the pleasure of seeing it on Thursday night. This was a really huge deal for me because this was the first Scream movie that I've ever seen in theaters. As a kid, I was very mortally horrified from the first two Scream movies that I always had to close my eyes. I was very, scared, like it really scared me. I couldn't even sleep at night. But after watching the third and fourth one, like my stomach is kind of getting better too. Like the gruesome deaths, the blood, the guts, things like that. Being stabbed in the neck. Um, and I thought, okay, it'll be really interesting to see the fifth one, and I loved it. It was a great movie. This was kind of bittersweet just because this was the first Scream movie that Wes Carpenter didn't direct because he passed away not that long ago. So they did this in dedication to Wes Craven, and I can tell that he would be very proud of the hard work that took to make this movie. But I'm also going to talk a little bit about the movie, kind of explain the scenes that went on in order. If you haven't seen this movie, I wouldn't watch this video, hence spoiler alerts. But if you have seen it, let's get into it. So this movie takes place 10 years after the events of the fourth one. I believe it's 10 years around there. So we have high school student Tara Carpenter. She's home alone and she's texting one of her friends, Amber. And then all of a sudden her phone rings. And then Amber was like, "Are you going to answer it?" Which kind of freaked Tara out. So she answered it and found out that it was someone who was saying that they were friends with her mom from group, I think, or something like that. And we find out later that it was the killer, threatening to kill her and her friend Amber. So he made her play the game where typical Ghostface asked them to ask three questions. She got all right but one, and he was looks like he was ready to kill her friend Amber. But then when Tara opened the door, Ghostface was there and stabbed her in the stomach. And so she kicked him out and locked the doors with her phone. And she was like slowly backing up. And then the killer kept calling, and she answers. And it turns out, and then all of a sudden, like the door lock on her app was saying unlock, and she was locking unlock. Happened a few times, and then she was kind of like just very scared. Then all of a sudden, Ghostface appears out of the dark, and really like breaks her leg, stomps on her, stabs her, I think 7 times around. Thankfully, we found out that she survived the attack, but she is like really wounded. She can't walk. Her leg is very hurt. She was on a lot of pain medication, things like that. So yeah, so that was the first part of the that's the first scene, and to me, I thought it was really well done. Props to Jenna Ortega for taking on that role because she pretty much carried the show. She or sorry, carried the movie. She was a strong person who really took a lot of beating. She was kind of like Dewey, because Dewey's been stabbed multiple times and still survived. So yeah, so that was well done. Then after the events from the first scene, we talk her we find her sister and her boyfriend Richie working at a bowling alley in Modesto, California, and then Tara's friend and person that she goes to school with, Wes, which I believe is a dedication to Wes Craven. Wes Carpenter, so had Wes's first name and John Carpenter's last name, which I thought was really cool. And everything in the movie was really cool. But yeah, he calls her, let her know that her sister was brutally attacked and she was in the hospital, and Sam wanted to go see her. So she took her and her boyfriend Richie, and they drove to Woodsboro to see Tara. And then they find Tara with her friends. Um, and then we also found someone else who made a brief appearance, and that was Judy Hicks. If you remember her, she was in the fourth one. She was kind of like the deputy that was flirting with Dewey and really, pissing off Gail. She's now a sheriff, and she's talking to their group of friends. We have Amber, who is who has a twin brother named Chad. They are actually the kids of Martha Meeks, which means Randy Meeks was their uncle, which I thought was really cool. Um, and they were just they were just kind of worried about what was going on. And we actually find out that if you remember Kirby from the fourth one, she was stabbed by Charlie at the end, and we didn't really see her body, or we just saw her like in pain while she was bleeding out on the floor. But we actually find out that she survived the attack, which I thought was really good because Kirby pretty much carried the fourth Scream movie on her back. So yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Um, so Sam goes to the hospital and sees Tara with her friends, and they were kind of surprised she was there, because Sam pretty much walked out and hasn't been seen for quite a while. So she tells Tara, if she asks her if she's okay and all that. And so she kind of takes a little break, and then she goes into the cafeteria, and then we actually see her talking to Billy Loomis, pretty much a ghost of Billy Loomis. Um, he, he was like, and we find out that Sam and Tara's real father was actually Billy Loomis. He got a woman pregnant right before he was killed by Sydney in the first one. And so she didn't really want to tell Tara, and then she gets a call from Ghostface saying that he knows her family secret, and he wants to tell her, and he wants to tell Tara. And, she just pretty much was the Sydney in that scene. She goes, "Come find me," and then find out that the Ghostface was actually behind the door, and kind of struggled trying to kill her. They was going around the cafeteria trying to kill her, and she got away. And she told them what happened, and that she was attacked. And so she thought it would be good to tell Tara about what happened, that she saw. She went to the attic and saw, like, I think it was like diaries or journals of what happened in that. What happened, that when she found out that her father wasn't her father, Billy Loomis was. And she was so mad that she woke her mom up and told her that, like, he is not our father, this person is. And then her father was actually right behind her, and found out that he wasn't really her father. So it's kind of like a weird long story, but he ended up walking out. So Sam blamed herself because she felt like it broke her family, and Tara was so pissed off at her. She told her to leave and never come back, and it was crazy. So that night, the friends, Wes, I think it was like Wes, Mindy, Chad, Amber, and Liv. Liv was another character. She was kind of like, I don't know. I felt like she was like the rebel girl. She had like different color hair. Personally, I really didn't like her character. I thought she was kind of a waste, but it was still entertaining with her. They were at a bar, and kind of just talking about certain things, and then we see this guy Vince who comes in. Vince is someone that Liv hooked up with, and now Liv is technically dating Chad. And then Vince was coming up and just started saying some really awful things, and Chad got up, and they were about to fight, but then they got kicked out of the bar. So Vince went to the back of the bar outside, and then when he went, he took a pee. Well, he took a piss, and then we find someone just like walking right past the scene, the frame, and then he finds his car turned on, so he went to check to see, but no one was in there. So he reached out, and he couldn't really shut the car off, or he did, or something like that. Then when you pan out, we actually see Ghostface behind him. Ghostface killed Vince, and yeah, so technically now there was one dead. Sam really wanted to find out the truth, and so she and her boyfriend Richie went to see the one and only Dewey Riley, who has been who's been in a bad place for the last 10, 11 years. He divorced from Gail. He lives a reclusive life in a trailer. He retired from he had to retire from the police force because he was stabbed 9 times, and he was limping. His health was catching up to him, so it wasn't really good. So he pretty much just sits at home, kind of just like lives the rest of his life in recluse. He watches Gail on the TV, finds out Gail is in charge of like the news, or I don't know, she's like a newscaster. So she's doing pretty good. She's in New York City, and he later on he says that that's the only time he's able to see her and all that. They haven't really talked in a few years, so he really doesn't want to rehash those moments. But yeah, they go to visit Dewey, and they want his help to stop the killer, but he says no and kicks them out. But yeah, but then after Sam and Richie leave, he gets on his phone and he contacts Sydney, who finds out she's living up north. They didn't really say where, but she might be in Oregon or Wisconsin. They think that she's married and has kids. She's trying to live her life out of Woodsboro, and he says that Sydney, whatever you do, whatever you hear, whatever you read, don't come. And Sydney was like, I have no intentions of coming. So after he gets off the phone with Sydney, he didn't call Gail because he knew that she was doing she was doing a newscast. So he pretty much texted her, saying that there's a killer here, don't come, and then says that he still loves her, which it's Dewey, so it's kind of funny seeing Dewey doing that through a cell phone. But yeah, so but then when they get to Mindy and Chad's home, they see Dewey, and Dewey's like, you know what, let's do it. I've done it 4 times. Let's do one more. So he goes in with them and finds Chad, Mindy, Wes, Amber, and Liv there. So they were pretty much talking about who do you think the killer could be, and then that's when we find that Chad and Mindy are related to Martha Meeks, who was Randy's sister, who we kind of had a brief cameo in the third movie. So we saw her for a scene, then she went off, and then we also found out that Vince is actually related to Stu. That was Stu's nephew, which was interesting because it kind of ties into the fact that all these characters that were killed, pretty much have a tie-in to the original characters. So they kind of were talking about that and saying, maybe maybe the killer is someone that we already know. That it could be someone here, it could be a family, it could be a friend. So they were kind of questioning each other, saying, well, "Are you the Are you the killer? Are you the killer?" So it was a crazy scene, but it's this movie was really getting interesting because it could be anyone. How in other Scream movies where they were pretty much pinning everyone as the victim. They were doing that with this one, but I don't know. I just felt like it flowed really well because it could have been anyone. And if you remember the movie poster of Scream, it says the killer is on the poster. So never knew it could be Dewey, Gail, Sydney, Amber, Chad, Mindy, Liv, Sam, Tara. It could have been anyone. So I thought it was really cool of a who done it kind of thing. But yeah, so then I think it was that later that day. Well, actually, before that scene ended, they were telling Wes like, "Oh yeah, Wes, you and your mom Judy won't ever get attacked or killed." So it was kind of a relief for him. But yeah, so the next scene, we find uh, Judy. She's at home, and then all of a sudden she hears the door open. So she grabs a knife and goes to check on it, and then turns out to be Wes. He was just coming in, went to the bathroom, and he was like, "Mom, what the f?" So she's like, "Oh, okay, good." But yeah, so she says that she's gonna go get sushi for them for lunch, and Wes stayed home. He was going to take a shower and then get the table ready for lunch. So Judy left to go get sushi. I can't even say that word, sushi. So and then Wes took a shower, and then all of a sudden Judy gets a call from the killer, saying that he's gonna do a psycho scene with Wes in the shower. You ever seen the movie Psycho? The part where she was in the shower, and then the killer was like like trying to stab her and things like that. So he was going to do that. He was going to kill Wes, and that really scared Judy. So she rushed back home, um, and then was talking to the killer for a few minutes after that. She got home and she was about to walk up the steps to the house, and then the killer just showed up behind the bush and just stabs her and kills her on the street. And then Wes comes out of the shower. He sees that his mom called, but never really thought anything of it. So he went down and was getting the table ready for her when she comes back with the sushi. And he kind of sees or hears things. So he went to check nothing. When they open the door, and then when they close it, kind of like what Robbie said in the fourth one, oh my gosh, there's a harmless character right behind them. It did that twice with no characters, nothing. And then Wes was coming, and then he sees the door open, or no, he hears the door open, thinking that was his mom. So he went to check, and turned out was someone there. So he went to close the door, and then when he turned around, he saw the killer there. So the killer was like really up close with him. Kind of felt like the character was gonna kiss him, which kind of made me think that maybe it was a girl. And then the killer had a knife and then kind of just sliced his neck. That was a really intense scene to watch. But I was like, oh, I can't believe Judy and Wes are dead now. Judy was actually my favorite character in the fourth one. Besides the original three, Judy really kind of brought that. That she was kind of like the crazy woman who really wanted what she wanted. So, but yeah, so now we know that the killer had killed three people. So, so Sam saw like the scene. She saw paramedics, fire trucks, and finds Judy being covered and Westbrook coming out, their dead bodies, and then she runs into Gail, and Gail sees Dewey. So she talks to Dewey, and she was really upset that Dewey texted her. um, texted her saying that he like there's a killer, don't come, I love you. So that really kind of pissed her off. But then Sam knew that, like, so Sam saw one of the other deputies. I forgot his name, but he was the tall one, really good looking too. He, she's like, wait, how come you're not with my sister Tara? Because Tara was later transported to a private floor. So she had the two security officers watching her, but then she saw that, they weren't there. So that means Tara was defenseless and she didn't have any protection. So Sam knew that the killer would be going to the hospital. So her and Dewey went and, were going to try and save her. So yeah, so they went to the hospital. And then we see Tara just sitting, just on her bed, and then she kind of hears noises, so she kind of gets scared, and she goes into a wheelchair. And remember, her leg was broken, beaten, so she was in so much pain. So she tries to wheel. She wheels out of the room, and when she goes and sees the desk, she goes by it, and then she sees a security officer. I believe it was a security officer, um, pretty much dead on the floor, bleeding, out. So she was scared. So she went into another room, was hiding, just to make sure that the killer wasn't there. And then, you know, she she kind of hears someone coming. She hears someone coming up, so she was ready to attack, and then it turns out to be Richie, but Richie wasn't really seen for a while. But yeah, so Richie was there, and then all of a sudden Ghostface comes, attacks Richie. Richie was unconscious on the floor, and he threw Tara out of her wheelchair, and she was on the floor trying to drag herself and kind of just trying to find a safe place to go. And then Sam, and then I don't know if Sam called the killer or the killer called her, but Sam knew that she had to rush over there. And then the killer was like, I'll give you two choices. You can either save the boyfriend or the sister. And, Sam cared about them both, so she didn't want to have to pick. So she was like, do not touch any of them. And then the killer was about ready to kill Tara. And then all of a sudden we see Dewey and Sam on the elevator. She shoots the killer, and then the killer, and then Dewey just kept shooting him, and then the killer, falls and was unconscious. So they picked Tara up, put her in a wheelchair, and they were going to go to safety back on the top floor or the ground floor, I guess, like that. And so, but Dewey's like, you know what? I gotta shoot him in the head. Shoot him in the head. It's done. So Dewey, sends Richie, Tara, and Sam to safety, and then he has a gun, and he, went to go shoot the killer, and then all of a sudden the phone rings or vibrates, and then Dewey looks down, and all of a sudden the killer comes up, and pretty much the killer kills Dewey. We thought, oh, maybe Dewey will survive this. No, the way the kill. Remember, so if you've seen the kill, it pretty much, killer stabs him, kicks him, things like that. So, and then Dewey, just laying there with his eyes open, not breathing, not moving. So we knew that this was Dewey's last scene. So it's kind of sad, Dewey was really one of my favorite characters too. So it was kind of rough seeing him kind of gone now. And the next scene where they see Gail sees a gurney with a dead person next to it or on it. She kind of knew that was Dewey, and so Sam was holding her back, and Sam and Richie were holding her back, and she was just she was so sad, and just seeing that kind of really just put a tear in my heart. Because so much time's left since they've spoken to each other. Like she was like, oh, why does this have to happen? So, and then Yeah, so that later that day, you know, Sam goes to talk to her and see how she's doing. Gail just, is just trying to get through the fact that Dewey's gone. But then we find Sydney coming into the picture. So Sydney comes, and we see, she heard about what happened to Dewey, so she came there and was comforting Gail, and just things like that. Then Sydney decides to talk um, to Sam, telling her that she's not alone and things like that, and offers to help track down the killer and kill him for good. But Sam was like, "No, we're gonna get Tara, get everyone out, like get Richie, we're gonna get out of here and never come back." So they walk out to where they had the car, and so Sydney was like, after a few times of saying, we'll help. So Sydney was like, okay, all right, good, just be safe. And then Sam was like confused, like, okay. So Sam left, and then Gail was like, Sydney, what the F? And then Sydney was like, well, I put a tracker on the car. That's what Gail Weathers would have done. And Gail was like, I've taught her well. So that was kind of a really cool scene. But yeah, so they were going to track them down and make sure that they were safe. It turns out all friends and everyone in the school was pretty much having a tribute to Wes, which to me felt like it was like a tribute to Wes Craven. So I thought that was kind of cool too. But we find out that the party was being held at Amber's house, which is actually Stu Macher's old house from the first one. It was redone, revamped. It was brought into the century, so it was really cool seeing the original house where that first bloodbath started. Sorry, my earphones is kind of hurting my ear. So they were there, just having a party and just having fun. We see Liv and Chad were making out, and they were like, let's have sex. And then Chad was like, nah. But then he was kind of also accusing Liv of being the killer. And Liv was like, whatever, I'm going to go. And then we see, oh, I forgot about the other one. What's her name? What's her name? That was, sorry, that was Mindy. I explained her. Yeah, Mindy. He was talking to Mindy, and it was like, dude, just go find her, tell her you're sorry, make up, things like that. So Chad was like, okay. So Chad walks out, and then he's like, Liv, where are you? And then he gets a location ping. Turns out she was just right on the path. So he went to go and finds that she wasn't there. So he's like, "Come on, what's going on?" And then we see Ghostface there, and after a few struggles and running away and kind of trying to save himself, the killer attacks. I always forget his name. Attacks Chad, and then I believe he died. He might have survived, but yeah, we don't really see Chad throughout the rest of the movie. And then, so let's see what's next. I'm trying to remember. We see that someone, I think it was Richie, or no, it was Amber. No, wait, who was it? It was someone that wanted to go down to the basement and get a drink. And then we see that it was either Amber or, wow, who was it? I'm trying to remember, but yeah. But I know Mindy was there, and she was like, "You went down by yourself. A bad mistake." Because pretty much, if you go into, like, it's pretty much what Randy said that in the first movie, in the first Scream movie that if if you say I'll be back, odds are you won't be back. So they walked up. Thankfully, no one was hurt, killed in that scene. So they went back up, and we see, and so Sydney and Gail were trying to track where they were at using the tracker, and find out that, oh, we are going back to Stu's place. And Gail was like, crap. Well, she said the sh word, but I don't know if I can say that on YouTube. But yeah, so we knew that the bloodbath was coming. They kind of had the party separate. So they were saying the party was over. There's a killer on the loose, things like that. So, before that though, so Sam needed her inhaler because she didn't have the extra inhaler that she needed. So she said, "Oh, Amber has an inhaler over there. Can we go get it?" And they were like hesitant, like, "No, we probably should go," but she really needed that, so they went to Amber's house, which was Stu's house, and then that's kind of like they were there. So Amber and Tara, went up to get the inhaler, and Richie was down there with Sam. They were walking around, just things like that, and then they decided to close the party, so everyone pretty much went home, leaving the friends minus Wes and Chad. They were all there, and then we see the killer ready to make their mark. So yeah, so we know that Mindy was the first one. Supposedly she was stabbed or shot, things like that. Oh yeah, we find out that the killer was Amber. So she first shoots and kills Liv. Then she reveals that she's the killer, so everyone else just scatters. Then Sydney and Gail, are outside the house. They're like, "You ready for this?" And Gail's like, "Nope." But Amber comes out pretending to be injured, and Sydney and Gail was like, "Not buying it." Then she goes, "Crap!" So she shoots Gail in the leg. Then Gail was like, "Sydney, you gotta go on your own." So Sydney walks in. The killer calls her, and he has the "Hello, Sydney," and like when things are gonna happen. So she, was, talking to Sydney, and Sydney was like, "I'm bored." So Sydney, Sydney was like walking around the house, and then she accidentally, she hears noises, so she opens the door and finds out that Richie was hiding. And then we see Ghostface coming and attacking Richie. And then him and Sydney, the Ghostface and Sydney. Wait, hang on. Sorry, I had a text message on my phone. See, where was I? Yeah, so she sees Richie, who was hiding, and she was like, "Where were you?" Even though she wasn't really around at the time, but yeah, so we see Ghostface attack Richie, and then him and the Ghostface and Cindy throws themselves over the balcony and just lands on the ground floor. And then they were very much in pain, so they were trying to get the gun. And then Sam is pretty much down there, and then she sees that Richie was alive, which was weird to her. But then he stabs Sam and tells her that he was Tara's attacker and Amber's accomplice. So so that the killer is revealed to be Amber and Richie. And earlier in the movie, Dewey was like, always check the love interest, which in that case was Richie. And when Richie was like, "You do even think about the boyfriend being it? You are so dumb." So yeah, so Amber and Richie take Sam, Sydney, and Gail into the kitchen because Amber drags Gail in. So and they told them that. So Richie and Amber tells them that they are really huge fans of the Stab series. They were kind of pretty much talking the bomb of Stab 8, which was pretty much like everyone hated it. So it didn't really have a good trajectory, and they wanted to revive the franchise with a new killing spree, kind of like the source materials. Um, Pretty much like kind of trying to kill the remaining people that were left from the first one, and then anyone that was related, kind of like bring what I think they call it a toxic fandom label that they have received. Um, but yeah, so and then we find out that Tara was held hostage. She had a rope around her body and had a tape on around her mouth. So Amber went to go get Tara, find out she was gone. She wasn't there, having been untied, and Sam was like, "Huh, I untied her. Sorry." And then yeah, and then that distracts Richie. And then Sydney and Sam overpower Richie. So pretty much Sydney, Gail, and Sam have the upper hand. But then and then we kind of took a little overturned. But then Sydney and Gail knew that they had to do something right now. So they so they attacked Amber, pushed her to the stove, and then Gail shoots was going to shoot Amber, and she was like, "This is for Dewey. You freaking killed him." So she shot because when Amber hit the stove, she turned the stove on. So and then Gail shot the stove, and then Amber was pretty much burned to death. So they did go one down, one to go. So let's see what happened. So yeah, so and then Richie, she so he teases Sam saying that it's gonna end tonight. But then she had Amber's knife and she stabs him multiple times. But before that happens, though, we see that we see Billy back and telling her that you have to do it. She sees a knife and he was like, "You do it." I would have. So she stabs Richie multiple times in the chest and neck, and before shooting him in the head. So, and she has that killer instinct look. So we knew that, yes, Sam was related to Billy because she looked a lot like, had the same facial expressions that Billy had when he was stabbing people, shooting them. So it was crazy. So we know that multiple people survived. So Tara and Chad and Mindy survived, and they're taken to the hospital. And Sam goes over to Gail and Gail and Sydney and just thanks them. And then Gail was like, I'm not going to make a new story based on this or write a book about this. I don't want another killer coming down for us, coming to us. So she decides to write a book about Dewey and all the things that he's done as a remembrance for him. So then we see media crews coming around and reporting, pretty much like the ending of the first movie. And then at the end of the film, it shows for Wes uh, as a remembrance to Wes Craven. So that was pretty much the movie. I know that was a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed this little synopsis. But to me, this movie was amazing. It never had any boring moments. It really just kept you on your feet, kept you on your toes, wondering who the killer is. And once you find the killer, like you find out who the killer are, you're like, huh, I would never guess that. Because they were saying that you're the killer, but no one really had any. There was no really ulterior. There was no like reason that they could be the killer. So I think finding out who the killer was very hard to kind of decipher while watching the movie. So props to everyone who was involved in that movie. You all did an amazing job. The cast was amazing. The crew was, seeing kind of Scream 1 and this Scream kind of working together. Seeing what was his name, the one who played Billy Loomis. I forgot his name now. Anyway, but yeah, it was really cool seeing Billy back on there. They kind of made him look like what his character was. They made him wearing that shirt that he wore in the first one. And so it was really cool setup. But hope you all enjoyed it. This is all that I have time for. If you have any video ideas or anything you want me to review or critique or give you a synopsis, please let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you follow and subscribe. I'm looking for more subscribers, and I will do more content coming up this year. All right, you all have a great day. Movie Buff out.